This is Sophia Smallstorm. It's February 19th, and I am here with another podcast in a rainstorm that recently hit California, and it was supposed to be the worst rain in 10 or 20 years, if you can believe it, which caused me to freak out a little bit in anticipation of what might happen. And then I heard from other people, they say that every time it storms. So this is how much we can trust the weather. But what we can trust is people that we know. And I know Sinead McCarthy. She is my guest today. And Sinead is going to tell us about an experience she had as a teenager, which is going to lead us into another much larger, very interesting discussion about what people are discovering today, all of us, about this child trafficking, Pedagate, Pizzagate territory. So let's welcome Sinead. She's really weathered something pretty horrific, and she's here to explain how it's one of the tentacles of this much larger scene. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Sophia. It's really good to talk with you again. I always enjoy our conversations, and I'm glad that I'm going to get to share this story with people because actually I've learned since putting out that video, it's very common. I mean, like out of a group of 10 people my age, probably at least one has been to one of these places.
Well, I had no idea of that. So what we're talking about, the video that Sinead created, was her own story on camera of this time she spent, I think it was 20 months, at a teen
Yes.
facility. Would you just quickly give us a synopsis of that?
Sure. So when I was 14, my parents had no control over me. I was just starting to experiment with drugs, nothing too crazy, but really it was just my behavior of not listening in school, not attending class, and just really being angry about the whole thing because I think I knew I was being lied to. So my parents were desperate, and all of the counselors at school told them that I was going to end up dead if they didn't send me to one of these places. And later I learned that these therapists get kickbacks for referrals. So they did a whole number, scared my parents, and my parents called one of these teen escort services where you just give them your credit card and they come kidnap your child. So they picked me up at around 4 in the morning, and they had their car parked in my garage, and it was all very surreal because I was half asleep. And my parents said, "We love you, but we have to do this to save you." And then these people threatened me if I didn't listen, they'd put me in handcuffs. They followed me everywhere in the airport. It's a very long story. I'm trying to make it condensed, but they drove me. We landed in Las Vegas. They drove me out to St. George, Utah, and then the gates slammed behind me. All of my possessions were taken away. I was not allowed to talk to my parents. I was not allowed to talk to basically anybody. I couldn't even wear shoes. Like everything was taken away. And then I met these people. They said they'd been there for several years, and it finally sunk in that I was not going to be leaving this place. Like they said, they had told me I'd be out in a couple months, but that was a lie. So 20 months later, I got out, and I was severely traumatized from the whole thing. And I'm still recovering. I mean, I think we'll always recover from those kind of big traumatic events. We still have dreams about them and things like that. But that's a really condensed version. I do plan on doing some more videos that go more into depth with the story because a lot of the tactics they used there are straight out of like a communist brainwashing handbook, breaking you down, a lot of psychological torment. It was the whole tough love approach, or what they call attack therapy. How those two words go together, I do not know. But basically it was yelling, recreating rapes that women have gone through, blaming women for rapes, just really, really sick stuff. So in a nutshell, that's where I was sent. It's part of a larger group of programs called WASP, funnily enough, because most of the people in there were what you would call WASPs, right? White Anglo-Saxon Protestants. But it
So,
stands for Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs.
so let me just cover a couple of things. You were in a normal school. You had pretty much a normal middle class parent house,
Yes.
home lifestyle, and you were not pleased with the way the school was teaching you. You were bored and irritated, and on some level you knew that this is a linear education programming, and it's very
Yes.
unpleasant for kids who don't like to learn in a linear way, I've learned. So
Yeah.
you acted out by becoming kind of like a truant, skipping
Yes.
class and experimenting with drugs and being insolent to your parents. And then
Yes.
they paid with a credit card to have you taken away. Now, did they pay for this entire 20 months you were there?
No, this is what they do. They do it like month by month. So I believe it's several $1,000s a month. And what they do is they tell you that, your child has to make it through their 6 levels. And I mean, to get out of this place, it's like it's the biggest mind F game you've ever played. You have points, you have demerits, you have all these rules, all these codes that you have to follow. I mean, it was insane. So what they tell you is your child will take as long as they choose to get out of the program, because if they're not working hard enough, then they're going to get points taken away, and no other factors will be considered. That, I don't know, I was being forcibly medicated and couldn't even keep my eyes open. None of those things are taken into account. It's just she hasn't earned the points, she's not working the program, as they say, and she'll decide how long it'll take her. So the fastest amount of time anyone ever got out of there by working the program and going through the levels was about 12 months, and that's unheard of. So they'd get the parents to pay month by month, saying, she's going to fail if she doesn't make it through the program. She'll just come back and she'll kill herself, and everything, all the hard work that she did will be worth nothing. So it's usually a month to month thing. Yes. But they do sign away all their rights, and they basically give us up to be treated however these people see fit, which was very badly, very, very poorly treated.
So it's really through your straw man. I'm bringing this back to the straw man and the doctrine of parens
Yes.
patriae. Just a little blip about that. Your parents signed your rights away. They are your official guardians until you reach the age of maturity, 18. So they signed your rights off to this agency that then puts you through this horrible treatment, and your parents are actually paying thousands of dollars a month. That's what I'm trying to establish. So they continue
That's
to
it.
pay.
That's it. Absolutely. Yep.
Oh,
They pay to basically warehouse these children. And they're thinking that they're getting some top of the line therapy, and oh, our child is so screwed up and they need medication. Oh, there's something wrong with them. I was in there with a Disney star. I mean, she's not actually that famous, but she had been used and abused by the music industry as a young girl. And of course, she's going to start doing drugs and start acting out. And what do? They just ship her off and warehouse her somewhere, and there was actually a few little like celebrity people that went there. But it's not some kind of like nice little getaway that a lot of people think these celebrities go to. It was like, it was prison conditions. We weren't allowed to look out the window. I mean, I mean, you couldn't talk to anybody. All of your letters were read. You didn't get a phone call until at least you were in for a couple months and you were thoroughly brainwashed. And every single phone call was monitored. So you couldn't say, please come help me. It was, everything's great. I'm working the program and I am taking accountability for what a bad person I am, and I'm changing. And, yeah, it was really sick.
so Sinead, would you say that you were brainwashed, but you retained a compartment or a part of yourself that was sane and cognizant of what was happening, or were you just completely starting to be worked by them?
I was completely brainwashed. I was so scared and confused by the whole thing that I was like, I was kidnapped. Like, I was trapped in this place. My parents weren't there. I had no idea what to do. So I think the fear really got me to just go completely brainwashed. And with me, I usually like I do something to the full extent when I really, want to show an effort. So I got to the point where I was so paranoid about breaking a rule, because if you break a rule and you don't write yourself up, someone else will tell on you, and then you get even more points taken away than you normally would if you said anything. So this whole idea of being dirty all the time was always playing in my mind, and they really played on that you're dirty, you need to come clean, come clean. That's what they would always say. So, even if you witnessed somebody else breaking a rule and you didn't report them, you would then go down with them. So it was just this dog eat dog world where they had group therapy, and it was always someone was being attacked every day. So if you're the one with everybody attacking you, you want to get that energy off of you and onto somebody else. You say, well, I saw her break a rule yesterday and she didn't write herself up. And then everybody's attacking everybody. At this one place in Jamaica, it got to the point where all of the students decided to kill this one boy because they knew that the place would get shut down if someone was murdered. So they picked the weakest one, and they all tried to drown him in the ocean, but he somehow got free. And now the place is shut down, but Tranquility Bay was one of the worst. Tranquility Bay and Costa by the Sea in Mexico were some of the worst. Like, I had friends that were there for 4 years, and they were sexually abused, physically abused. All of their things were stolen when their parents sent packages. Um, I was never sexually abused. I had friends that were. I was more just over medicated and poisoned. So, and you weren't allowed to say no to the medication. They would check your mouth, like you had to open your mouth, and they'd look under your tongue. And if you didn't take the medication, then you weren't going to get the points to get up to the next level. And, they had me on all kinds of crap.
So,
It was
Sinead,
awful.
what do you think the point of, I'm sorry if this sounds like a dumb question, but I'm just trying to frame this as I'm understanding it. So they bring all these kids here by abduction. The parents are paying thousands of dollars a month. Parents are under the impression that their kids are getting top of the line treatment to recover from their truancy and drug issues and misbehavior. And instead, there's a brainwashing going on, tremendous exploitation of the children. And if and when they release these kids, what would become of these kids? They would be returned to society totally brainwashed. Is there some, are they watching what happens when they do let these kids go?
Yes. Yes. Well, what happens if you're not 18, which I was not 18, so obviously my parents still had legal guardianship or ownership, I guess, of me. So what they say is when you go home, you bring the program home with you. You have a program at home. All of the points system, all of the rules, all of the codes came home with me. So I had to follow this program at home, or I would get sent back, and they send you back for free. So it's a nice incentive to remain totally scared to do anything wrong, because you might get sent. They might come kidnap you again in the middle of the night. I wonder why I have problems sleeping. So as soon as I turned 18, I went to the opposite side of the pendulum, because I was just so traumatized. I was like, I just can't even deal with the last couple of years of my life. I'm going to start doing drugs again. And I did. I did more drugs than I ever did before the program, after the program. And all of my friends that I know are either dead, hooked on drugs, or prostitutes now. Very few of them are doing well. It's disgusting to see what these people are worse off after the program.
Wow. So it's really it's a taking apart of the human brain and soul to let it go to self-destruct, really, right?
Yes, and what they do is they like program false memories within you. You have to have some kind of really traumatic sob story, and you have to cry about it. And if you don't, then you're kicked out of the seminar, and you have to wait, 5 more months for the next seminar. And they would get on me for not crying enough, and I was like, I don't have anything majorly traumatic that happened in my life. Like, I wasn't raped. I don't know, like, my parents smacked me around a bit, but like, okay, that's it. I don't have some sob story here. So you would have to like make stuff up. And it was just so sick. If you didn't cry enough or get angry enough, it was all about like intense emotions. They wanted us to, one exercise was they rolled up these towels, and they put on this like really, they always did stuff to music. It's like they were programming us with music. So we'd have to like hit the towel over and over again until there's snot pouring out of our nose and we're crying and screaming to the point where we're almost vomiting. Because if we're not, then we're not getting those negative emotions out. And also what they would do is they would make us listen to tapes constantly while we eat. We weren't allowed to talk except for on the weekends sometimes. They would play music, and we could sometimes talk during meals. But it was these like motivational tapes, like Deepak Chopra or something, like these random self-help people that we would listen to constantly, just programming us. The seminars were the worst. They would deprive us of food. They would deprive us of water. They would deprive us of adequate sleep. And then they would do those psychological processes like with the towel. They would have us dress up and dance to different things. Like you had to be a butterfly, or you had to do Lady in Red. I don't know why they had cross-dressing going on. Like we had to do the seminars with boys, and we never saw boys. We were completely separated except for the seminars. So how traumatic is that? You have no idea how to talk to a boy anymore, and then you're having to sit in these groups and talk about like intimate details and cry in front of them. And then they had the boys cross-dressing and dressing up in dresses and dancing to Lady in Red. I mean, this is so sick.
Sinead, have you told your parents about this experience?
Yes, and I had a big falling out with them when I was in college, when all of this kind of came flooding back to me, and when I started connecting with old people, and I had pushed it out of my mind for so long, and I really got mad at them, and then I was like, okay, there's really no point. Like they apologized to me, they felt awful, they had no idea, they were lied to as well, so I try not to hold it against them anymore. I don't see the point in me, being so angry with them. A lot of people say I shouldn't talk to them, but um, I disagree. They, what's crazy, Sophia? The parents have to go through the seminars too. And if they don't go through the seminars, then you don't move up in the levels. So they put my parents had to go through the same towel shit. Sorry, same towel stuff that I did. I mean, so they brainwash the parents as well. And the parents feel obligated to go to these seminars so they can get their child back. It's so sick.
So the parents are attending their own seminars, but not
That's right.
obviously at your facility, somewhere else.
Well, that's correct, but they do have PCs, parent child, PC 1, 2, and 3. And you go and you do these traumatic things with your parents. It's sick. So my parents, obviously, they didn't experience as much trauma as I did. They weren't kidnapped and all of that, but they experienced the brainwashing through the seminars along with me. And altogether, I remember just feeling so uncomfortable about this whole thing, like having to be with my parents in these like small groups with the lights all dim, and my therapist was there like trying to draw all this stuff out of us. It was just so sick. So I guess we were traumatized as a family. And I feel like well, like I said in the video, it was the birth of my son that really healed all of us. So that's been a very positive thing. But yeah, the parents have to go through it as well. And they have to pay a lot of money to go to the seminars. They have to pay for a hotel. They have to, pay, 3 days off of work. And I mean, all these parents were so desperate to get their child back to normal or healthy that they were, selling everything. I mean, they were living in a trailer just so they could try and help their child. And what happens? They both get severely traumatized, and then the child ends up killing themselves and hating the parent for the rest of their life. I mean, it's the worst thing that could happen to a family.
Wow. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it was that deep and that extensive. And do you have any
Yeah.
idea who was the author, the brain behind all this? Who started
Well,
this
Sophia,
WASP thing?
yes, it actually kind of goes back to Synanon. I don't know if you're familiar with Synanon, but it was like this self-help thing that started out in California, which then converted into a church, which then basically was a cult. And it started to get really, really crazy. I think it broke apart. But it was these kind of methods that then morphed into what they call straight ink. And the kids programs, they have since, I believe, shut down most of the straight ink facilities, but there's a movie for free on YouTube called Over the GW Bridge, or Over the GW, which a survivor of one of the straight ink programs put together, that shows you the kind of therapeutic practices they were using, which go back to Synanon. So then straight ink morphed into WASP, Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs, and the Keys seminars. I guess that was the group that did the seminars. They basically took influence from Synanon and straight ink's techniques of, the weird traumatic attack therapy, and that's where these seminars came from.
Oh, you should. I wish I could photograph my face as I've been listening to you. The expression on it, it's just going to be carved in by the time
It's
we're
really
done.
dark. Yeah, it's just insane. And I also Robert Litchfield, the owner or the founder of WASP, was Mitt Romney's campaign, or like one of the biggest donors to Mitt Romney's campaign in Utah. And as I was telling you before we started recording, they found like weird animal bones on this guy's property. So, that to me says, okay, he's part of this whole sacrificial, you know, cult that does this kind of thing. And he was actually asked to step down because of all the lawsuits that were being filed against WASP. And I don't think anybody has gotten any kind of justice,
So does
even though these
WASP
lawsuits.
continue today?
I believe WASP still exists, but they change the name constantly. So I was at Cross Creek Programs. That was under the umbrella of WASP. They have now renamed it to Youth Foundation Inc. because obviously survivors of Cross Creek were, there's probably lawsuits, there were a lot of complaints, a lot of allegations. So what they do is they just change face. They just get a new PR person, they put up a new logo, and they use the same building. And, I've looked at the Facebook of Youth Foundation Inc. It looks like they may have relaxed their rules a little bit, or maybe that's just the outside appearance, because they give out these videos. You can even watch it on YouTube probably, and they make it look like there's going to be horses. We're going to be swimming in a pool. This is like Club Med. And then you get there and it's just a jail. There's no horses. There's no anything. I mean, you're not even allowed to look out the window. So it's a complete, complete lie. But yeah, it's still open. Still open.
So they force medicated kids. I know you sent me pictures, and I think you described in your YouTube how people would be put in isolation, and they would.
Yes.
I see people lying in the photos on a cement floor, pretty much
Yes.
tied up, right, with it face down.
Yeah. Yeah, this was called observation placement, or ISO. Now, the pictures that you're looking at are from Tranquility Bay in Jamaica, and they were always way harder on the boys. So I've got to say that. But these things happened to the girls as well. For us, isolation, we did not have to lie on the ground. We had to do the books on tape, and then if you were taken to worksheets was the books on tape, and then isolation was just a padded cell. So there was no other people in there with you, and you did not have to lie on the ground like that. But there are some boys that in Jamaica, Tranquility Bay, who were on the floor like that for months. All they could do was get up to take their medication, to eat their worse than prison food. I mean, you saw a picture of it there. It just looks like slop, and get back on the floor with their face down for months. This is what their parents are paying for, while they think they're off at some nice little like resort in Jamaica, like playing, football on the beach. They're being tortured in isolation. And this was considered a therapeutic practice. So yeah, it's really great.
Sinead, what kind of music did they constantly play?
Oh, there was this one like march song that they would always play when we came into the seminar room. Oh, I wish was it like the Star Wars theme or something? One of those, like March of the Empire or something. I'm trying to remember what it was called. Then they also would play oh man, I wish I could remember some of these seminar songs. They were very strategic. There was The Lady in Red, Metamorph, like that Butterfly song by Mariah Carey. Oh man, I would have to go back and ask other people, because my memory is really, really gone from this place. I think it was mostly a protective thing for me, but also the medication has really ruined my memory. So I can't remember exactly, but someone has written an article about this, and I will find it for you, and we can link it to the show if people are interested. Because yes, this use of music, sleep deprivation, lack of food, lack of water, high intensity emotional exercises, coupled with the dim lights. I mean, the lights, we never had dim lights. We always had the fluorescent lights, and we weren't even allowed to have the lights off at night. Like, we had to leave our doors wide open, and there was someone sitting there in the hallway with the lights on. So we never had darkness. So it was just a very altered state for everybody, and it really screwed with everyone's minds.
So they really messed with your biology, because you were in this state of artificial light. You didn't get to go out in the daylight much. And so all the biological clock was messed with. So I know that you were brainwashed while this was going on, but how did you feel physically inside your body? How yucky did you feel? Can you describe it?
Awful. I mean, after the pit in my stomach and the sadness that I felt when I finally realized no one was coming to get me, that these girls had been in here for like 2 years, that was just I felt so abandoned. Like, it was just awful. So I think I finally got over that, and we all kind of like helped each other to deal with it, because we were all severely traumatized by the situation. And then, they became my new family, and I became very attached to them instead of my own family. And my own family got really offended, because they were supposed to come see me for Thanksgiving. And I said I wanted to be with my real family. And they got really upset by that. But I don't know how else I was supposed to survive without, I guess it was like Stockholm syndrome a little bit, like the staff. I was like, you're my new mom, and I love you. And I just wanted to be back with my parents. So I kind of replaced the people there as my family, and I grew very attached to them to the point that I was afraid to leave. So it really just, yeah, it sent me to like the other extreme, you know? There was no healthy middle, and I don't know how they expect to take children out of a sick environment, patch them all up, and then throw them back into a sick environment and expect that to work. You know, we're not getting to the root cause here.
So, when you say you attach to people there, I was thinking those were your peers and not like staffers, right?
It was peers and staff because there were different levels of staff. You just had your normal everyday staff that were like, I mean, they were probably paid $5 an hour. They had like missing teeth. They were like, you know, like trailer trash. You know, they had no education. They weren't teachers. They weren't psychologists. Even our teachers at school, which was such a joke. We did not have school. I missed out on 2 years of education. Um, they weren't teachers. They were just like some minimum wage person, like that has no qualifications. And our therapists were just social workers. And the therapists were the ones that really did all the damage. The other staff were just like people that just worked at a regular job, I guess. So I did grow attached to them because some of them were like young and they were cool. And they, you know, they were the only people you get to really interact with. So I did grow attached to them, but it was really my peers that were my new family, the
I
ones that were
see.
in it with, you know, with me. Yeah.
And were the trailer trash, for lack of a better word, the minimum wage staffers around you, were they observing that this was a crazy place and that bad things were being done?
No, I think they thought it was totally normal. They just thought that we were all like spoiled kids and we, you know, just needed to be, you know, I don't think they thought anything of it. Maybe some, but for them it was just like going to work at the jail, you know, going to work at juvie. You know, they thought we were all in there for a reason. So, no, I don't think any of them thought it was weird at all,
Well,
which is
then
even more disturbing.
I think you really need to be given some kind of amazing accolades and award for having survived it and for having retained your beauty and your
Oh, thank you.
mind and doing the work that you're doing. I mean, this is a very unusual journey, and to have come out and become you as I know you today is amazing. So, everybody listening, know that we're hearing a person who is an extraordinary survivor and has done something very extraordinary with her life. Just know that.
Thank
So,
you. That really means a lot to me. I really appreciate that.
well, you deserve it. I want to end the
Thanks.
interview now and have moments of silence, but we can't do that. So we have to continue. We have to
That's right. Keep
continue.
going.
So where should we go with this? You have made a very amazing part one with Kyle Hunt and a couple of other people that looks into this pedo gate, pizza gate. And I watched it yesterday, and wow, that is an incredible piece of work. Very thorough. I'm going to put a link up to that as well. But Sinead, what you went through was part of a much larger picture. And do you want to
Yes.
try to connect some of that picture together for us?
Yes, I absolutely do. Because what happened to me is just one isolated little incident, and this is becoming the norm for children all over I mean, what happens to these children is far worse than what happened to me. I'm not trying to discredit what I went through, but we need to understand the pervasiveness behind this. Okay. If my parents called up a stranger and had me taken away with one phone call, how are children being trafficked all over the place? I mean, it's happening right in front of our faces. There are people were at the airport watching me. Some of my friends were in handcuffs with these strangers. No one said a thing. I actually saw one of my teachers. This was very strange. One of my teachers from my high school saw him in line at the security check as these two strangers were taking me on a plane. Did he say anything? No. No one cared. No one cared that two strangers were threatening to put me in handcuffs and were trafficking me from Connecticut all the way across to Las Vegas, then to Utah. They didn't care. No one cared. I had no rights. These children have no rights. They're seen as commodities. They're seen as disposable. They're seen as a nuisance. And they are the very mirror of our society. And if they're annoying you, well, it's because society is not working out right. So there's so much blaming on children and even teenagers for reacting to a sick society in a very volatile way, but I don't know what they expect. When you put a plant in poisonous soil, it's gonna die. So, yes, that I would love to get into child trafficking in general. I actually live in, outside of Orlando, which is, I think, number one in the country. I mean, it's up there. There's a huge hub here for human trafficking, and of course, child trafficking. So I don't know where we can even begin, but I know we were just reviewing this connection with Silsby and Haiti and all these orphanages and all these children's organizations that are supposed to help children. They're usually the ones covering and trafficking.
Yes, that's quite true, as we're finding out that the people who want to exploit children, of course, it's a no brainer. Just set up an organization that invites children through and by way of their parents, who obviously give consent. And I also am learning now that this is quite horrifying, that parents, can't even believe it, they breed children for the purposes of
Yes,
sacrifice and molestation and trafficking. I mean, it blows me away. And you know what? I want to throw this in. I know it's a little bit out of order, but when the day comes that everybody is going to be pretty much sterile, thanks to wireless radiation irradiating their sperm and eggs such that nothing is viable anymore, you're only going to be able to make babies in a lab with a needle. And once they have control of artificial baby making, who knows what those babies are going to be created for, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And even now, I mean, they have that show called The New Normal. I forget what network it's on, but it's about a woman who is a surrogate for gay guys. And oh, the new normal. Oh, I'm going to have a baby for these two gay guys that totally deserve to have a child. No, they don't. I mean, you made your choice. You're gay. You don't get a child. You're not able to make one. So this is already happening. I had friends, and I myself was ready to donate my eggs for like 5 grand back when I was in college. And then I looked into it and I thought, oh my God, no, this is terrible. Um, it's very common now for women to just give babies away. I don't know if you've seen the film Frozen Angels, but it follows around a woman who is a surrogate for someone, and just no attachment to this life growing inside of her, and she just gives it away right after. I mean, this is so sick. Yeah, you
Yeah,
even
it
there's a
is.
picture. Oh, go ahead.
It is true. I mean, nature makes everything in excess. So when you look at, seeds and fluff, that dandelion white stuff, the milkweed, when you remember you picked those as children and you blew on them, and those are all dandelion seeds. And in nature, billions of seeds are blown all over the place, carried by animals, digested, pooped out somewhere, but very little of it actually takes root and becomes a tree. And similarly, a tree or a plant or whatever. Similarly, in humans, look at the millions and millions of sperm that men make, and every girl is born with 400,000 or so eggs in her ovaries, and only 400 get used in a lifetime. So now these baby making operations are calling for women like you, Sinead, to donate eggs out of their ovaries for, what's really a pittance when you think about how much exploitation can be done and experimentation can be done with these donated parts of life. And so men are becoming sperm donors for whatever it is. They quickly go and have a little experience and ejaculate, and that's it. They make money. They can do it again tomorrow if they want, and women can give
Yeah.
up eggs. It's just incredible. Nobody thinks about what this is going for potentially.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, they don't think that, this baby or these eggs could create, a child that's going to be raped and sacrificed. Everyone, they just think, oh, I'm going to give a loving couple a chance to have a child. But no, that's not really what happens. And just the exchange of money for a child is just very wrong. I just do not understand it. I understand when people adopt, but even that is exploitative because I don't know. It's just the exchange of money. It's very sick and wrong. And I don't think people are taking into consideration the child involved, even in IVF, of uh, heterosexual couples. I still think there is something very alien about creating a child in a petri dish. Which doesn't That's not what we're supposed to do.
Right, that isn't. But again, with in vitro fertilization, I don't know whether it began as a nefarious part of medicine. It
Right.
was part of research medicine for sure. And I think there are people who are very stricken with grief that they can't conceive. And I actually had a friend who performed acupuncture, and he was a very good acupuncturist, and he was very successful with fertilization methods. He would receive, I guess in acupuncture you call them patients, who would say that they were tapped out financially. They had tried everything in vitro and they were just told by their doctors, that's it, you just can't, it doesn't work, you can't conceive. You can adopt or you can forget about it. And they would come to this particular acupuncturist who would put them on Chinese herbs. He would instruct the wife very seriously to change certain aspects of her life, reduce stress, and then he would do, of course, a little bit of acupuncture, and he had a success rate that was mind-blowing. These women would get pregnant, and it would be natural, basically, no IVF, nothing. And he was pretty stunned. This was just something that he thought he might try with. Maybe he had one particular set of patients who said, "Can you help us in this way?" And it turned out successful. So this medical IVF methodology is, I think it's much more experimental than they're letting on. And one
Yeah.
day that's going to be the way that human beings conceive. And you'll have to apply as
Hmm.
parents. You'll have to be licensed as qualified parents, which will be part of that whole explosion of mental health, that's going on
Oh, yeah.
now. And then you will, when you get approved, you will have babies made in a petri dish, and God knows how many they'll make. They might tell you, oh, we succeeded with one, but there will be others that they don't tell you about, right?
Right. I mean, they're already doing that in Israel. I believe Israel pays for up to 3 attempts. This is like the number one way that babies are conceived in Israel. That film Frozen Angels, I definitely recommend people to watch it because this Jewish man is actually talking and saying, why would anybody conceive a baby the normal way? I mean, this is the best. So it's becoming the norm. Old-fashioned baby making is out the window, I guess. It's old news.
That's really incredible. Why would anyone conceive the normal,
Yeah.
the usual way? But I'm sitting here, I'm taking notes. I will make links out of some of these things that we're talking about. Um, I guess that I guess it's all changing. You and I are part of. I mean, I'm older than you are considerably, but we're part of an old-fashioned way of thinking, and these newer and newer generations who I saw three loutish youths yesterday crossing the road, and it was a crappy day. It was going to rain any minute, and they were dressed in, hoodies and whatnot, and they were shuffling, and they each had earbuds. They were walking on the street, listening to what they were all in their own world, each in their own separate world. And these were friends walking together. And I was thinking, I was at a red light waiting for them to cross. I was thinking, all right, so are they listening to music or are they listening to programming and brainwashing? And either one, there's programming that comes through music, clearly, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
People are willing to be programmed every minute of the day, even when they're with their peers.
It's very bizarre. Very bizarre. I mean, why even hang out together if you're not, with each other, present with each other?
Yeah, it was. I had to laugh and then I had to feel sad because that's the future. The future is going to be everybody shuffling around through life being programmed. And if you tell them, you know, what's happening with those earbuds, you're getting programmed. You're being taken farther and farther away from your true self. You don't even know that you have a true self at this point. And you're being made into a tool of the state and the corporations and the ideology that has created what you're listening to. And nobody would believe you if you said that to them.
No, they'd probably call you crazy. Even when you point out that it's called TV programming, I mean, that's what they refer to it as. They're not hiding anything there. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah. So the larger picture, you were in a teen facility, and let's go back to the way I framed it just for my purposes. That was brainwashing you to release you to self-destruct. And that you said that that was part of a greater observation program by itself.
Yeah, I don't know if they took data. I'm assuming they did because, they would know. Well, they would know if someone returned back because, I was in there while several girls came back after failing at home, So they would definitely have data on that. But as far as following my progress, I mean, they might have been covertly. They never really asked for any kind of reports or anything. But I'm sure that my school was aware of where I was coming from because as I was trying to apply to different private schools in New Mexico when I was released. And by the way, I was sent back to my junior year of high school. I don't know, maybe 2 weeks after leaving that place. I was thrown back to the wolves. That was fun. So they knew that I was coming from this place, and several of the schools wouldn't even talk to my parents because of this. I was tainted. So they knew. But as far as, taking close observation, I'm not entirely sure, but I would not be surprised at all.
Well, so let me just put it this way. There's money in destroying something and then rebuilding it. So if they can make a lot of money as they destroy you in these treatment facilities and then they throw you to the winds or the wolves, they make you self-destruct. Well, what they've done is they've set it up so that you will likely self-destruct, or you will join, like the ranks of prostitution, drug pushing, whatever, their underworld, their dark underworld. And then you'll become one of their assets, although it would be on a low level, most likely. So if you just went on to be a drug user and to self-destruct, then potentially you could be part of other programs that would attempt in this pseudo and insincere, disingenuous way to rebuild you. So you would just become fodder for their larger rebuilding machines.
Yes, absolutely. And also an interesting thing that they would do is graduates of the program would then go back and staff the seminars. So you have that kind of cycle, that continuity of the program with, the people that have been through it, then going and doing it to the people that are now going through it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's a natural parallel to pedophilia.
Yes,
it really is.
Absolutely.
It all starts with your own experience, how you have managed to be exploited, whether it was by accident or misfortune or your parents offered you up. And then you have to become part of that culture. And I think, I don't know, this is my 2-cent psychology working here, but it's an attempt of your own psyche to justify and ratify what happened to you. If you join the culture and you become a perpetrator, I mean, those comments that we see that came out of Alefantis's Instagrams and the responses posted, the enjoyment, that's what really baffled me until I began to look at it this way.
Yep, that makes perfect sense. And that's how these pedophilic families and organizations have been able to keep this up for so long. It's a generational thing. I mean, it's like the parents go through it, the children go through it. It's ritualistic. It's it's ingrained in their family line. So absolutely, I know then people will say, oh, well, then they're just victims. But that's where I draw the line, because if a dog bites a child, you put the dog down. You don't say, oh, that dog was beaten as a child. They don't really care. So When we have sick dogs hurting children, I think they need to be put down. But absolutely, it makes perfect sense. This generational cycle of abuse and the normalization and the attempt to normalize it in the psyche to then make it okay what happened to them, to make it normal or justified. So yes, this is definitely a generational thing for sure.
So the people that you remember as friends or co uh, attendees at this teen facility, and you said that they had pretty much degenerated. Uh, when you kept in touch with them, did you try to explain to them that, they shouldn't really be following this path? I mean, I don't know if I'm saying it
Yes.
properly.
Yes, well, I tried to explain to them, like, look, we were victims, you guys. Like, this is not okay. This place did not help you. If you're doing well now, it's because you're scared. And this whole entire place was punishment based. And just from my research into behavior modification, as soon as punishment is taken away, the behaviors resurface. It's called spontaneous recovery. They basically, or an extinction burst. It happens way more than it did before, because it was all fear based. It wasn't any kind of real change. It was just, I'm afraid, therefore I'm not going to do these things. But when that threat is taken away, I'm going to go nuts. So I did actually, I started a Facebook group like WASP is fraud or something. And I was inviting all these people and they basically just said, Sinead, leave it in the past. Just get over it. Like we're fine now, don't complain. Your parents are trying to help you. Just get over it. And I was just very angry that no one really cared. There were a few people on there that, have really been active in trying to get justice for these survivors. But most people were utterly brainwashed and they were calling me, crazy, saying that I'm trying to make the program look bad and blah, blah, blah. But it was actually this one girl who had been in there for like 4 or 5 years that was battling all of us trying to expose the place. And I just feel bad for her because that's just utter brainwashing. She was a twin and her sister were in there since they were very young. And they became so attached to the staff, the abusive staff, Stockholm syndrome, that they actually wanted to go back. I think one of them did go back and work at one of these programs. And they make YouTube videos defending the programs, calling us, drug addicts or whatever because we don't like the program, but we don't even do drugs. So it's very sad that they were so young. Like when children are kidnapped, their coping mechanism is to just attach to somebody that they can make some kind of normal life for themselves to make it feel kind of normal. So that's what happened to these poor girls. And while I don't agree with them, I understand it and I pity them. Sad.
I was thinking about children who are, I'll say, being pedophiled. And if they start they're all young, often young when they start, this is all they know. And they
That's
believe
right.
it's the only thing, it's like put one foot in front of another. And you showed in the video you made with Kyle Hunt and the others a picture of Macaulay Culkin as a little boy and how, I'll just say, angelic and cute he was. And then the young adult Macaulay Culkin, and I think the comment in the script was, he's had the life sucked out of him. And that was, a truer statement could not have been put on that particular shot of him. It was just horrible. Ghoulish.
It really shows the damage. I mean, they are, and I believe obviously this is through sexual abuse, through sodomy. I mean, they really are draining the chi, the life force of these young boys and girls. But you can clearly see in Macaulay Culkin that is a perfect example of what they do. And we have him in the Pizza Underground. Obviously, any kind of child star, you can just assume that they've been used and abused. And that's what happens. I mean, look at Miley Cyrus, at all of these, once cute and adorable little children, they're then, made into whores. And then, a lot of people will blame Miley or will blame the star, but these people don't have control of their lives. They're probably kept in cages for all we know. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, there was a lawsuit filed against John Travolta by a massage guy in LA who said that Travolta solicited a massage from him and came to pick him up, took him to, I guess it was a hotel room. The massage guy brought his table and everything. and set up the table, and Travolta started coming on to him sexually, and the massage guy said,
Wow.
no, I don't do that. I am here to do a massage if that's what you want, but I'm not going to do anything else. And John Travolta apparently threw a fit. This is all public record. You can look this up. It's part of the court document filed. And Travolta was saying, what do you mean? What do you have against what I'm asking you to do? You should know what they made me do. And he was pulled out of high school. I think it was Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, or someplace, and brought to Hollywood. And he said, they made me do things that would make you vomit. But here, he became an icon, and everybody thought he was so great in Welcome Back, Kotter, and then Saturday Night Fever, and he went on to be an actor in all these different films. And yet, when you try to think about the path that he had to take to become that, and I guess these young teen stars, they can't really tell their parents, because especially if they're brought out of poor families, the parents want them to make all the money.
That's
and
right.
wouldn't believe them. And I mean, it's mind-boggling.
It is. And for John Travolta in that instance, he probably didn't see anything wrong with what he was doing because, again, it was normalized. Like, you sexually exploit people. That's what happened to me. So why aren't you okay with it? And wow. It's really, really sick. Really, really sick. I can't imagine what kind of childhood a lot of these people had, that were just sold as a commodity. And interesting with John Travolta, I mean, he's a big Scientology guy, and Scientology is a whole other topic. I mean, it's so pervasive in Hollywood. It's a cult. It's very, very strange and pedophilic as well. And it also ties back to the Process Church, which is another interesting kind of group. And it was an offshoot of Scientology, and a lot of weird, dark, seedy stuff going on with those kind of groups as well. So we know that anybody that's anything in Hollywood has had to do a lot of really gross stuff, most likely child rape and sacrifice, especially anybody, politicians, businessmen, artists, basketball players. I mean, I'm sure you saw in the film the McMartin preschool case where these children were able to identify, politicians, football players, all of these people at these weird, satanic or Talmudic, as I call it now, rituals with the capes and the candles and, all of that. And these children were just being taken from a preschool and then dropped off at the end of the day. The parents had no idea. Or maybe they did. They probably did. But yeah, it's hard for us people that still have, a conscience and a soul and a brain that's working. It's hard for us to understand why a parent would do this, because I as a parent, I can't imagine birthing a child and giving it away. I mean, I would go into a severe depression. So it's very alien to us to picture a woman who's supposed to be this maternal, warm, nurturing figure to carry and birth a child and give it away for whatever purposes, money, sacrifice, status. It's very hard for us to understand, but it happens. And there are female pedophiles as well. I've found that they're usually the curators, although they do engage in some abuse. They seem to be the perfect front to be a curator, preschool teacher or, I don't know, nursery school worker. A lot of people don't suspect women, but we know Ghislaine Maxwell was curating these young girls for people like Trump and Epstein and Clinton on the Lolita Island. So she was the one who was basically kind of luring these girls in through modeling gigs and things like that. And I experienced a lot of that when I was trying to make a music career for myself in New York City. I had people telling me that I actually have to do sexual things to get a record contract. I mean, I was talking with Sony, who was trying to get me in touch with Paul Van Dyke, who's like a European trance artist. He's not that popular, but I was trying to just get some kind of payment for my singing. And I remember this guy sitting me down and saying, you have to be very sexually open with Paul and his crew. And I was like, I was 18. I'm like, what do you mean sexually open? You just have to not be, so prude or this kind of thing. And that's what scared me away from the music industry entirely. I ran away from that situation. I never talked to them ever again. So I know how normal it is. I mean, I had friends who were models, how normal it is to just be, have a rape attempt during a casting call, have a photographer say, take off your underwear right now. These things are so normal to these girls. They don't even really care sometimes. Their souls have been so broken that they'll just do it. They'll just do it to get a gig. And that's the big issue, is that our people's there are people are so broken that they will defile themselves like that for a few dollars. Really
Yeah,
low state.
they don't protect themselves. I don't think people understand any longer that they have a non-material part to them. You could call it the soul or the spirit, and that's really part of their body. And when you start defiling your body, you are really starting to harm that other part of you, and you will end up not being a protector of yourself eventually. And it seems to me, Sinead, I wanted to ask you what you think of this, but I'm just wondering if our future, let's catapult forward, I don't know, 50 or 100 years from now, are we just going to see overt sex, pedophilia, like on the streets? I mean, will people be dressing in absolutely unthinkable ways? What is it going to be like?
If nothing is done, yes, that I mean we'll be seeing that on the street in broad daylight. We'll be seeing people having sex with animals on the side of the street. We'll be seeing people having sex with corpses on the side of the street, children being raped, children being sacrificed in the middle of the town square. I mean, this is where we're headed. They've already done a huge number on normalizing the sexualization of children. I see little girls in string bikinis when I go to the beach. They don't even have breasts. There's nothing to even put in the bikini. And they're wearing bikinis and they're twerking and they're dancing to Miley Cyrus. And I mean, we're here. There's like a very thin veil between full out, just straight up pedophilia and sexual debauchery in public. There's a very thin veil here that's about to be pierced through if we don't start holding these child rapists accountable. And I mean, at this point, we have overwhelming evidence. We know that the FBI and all of these organizations are put there to protect the predators. So I'm hoping that this leads to some actual action. I wish I had the answers as to how we do that, because we're up against a mighty force. This pedophilia is pervasive in the military as well. Oh my gosh. There's no place where it doesn't exist. And military is huge. I mean, these military children are experimented on, not just sexually, but probed. They have microchips put in them. They have, they're given chemicals and vaccines, and they're poked and prodded. This is very normal for a military child. Not all, of course, but high-ranking military officials are mostly all child murderers and rapists. And I mean, look at Michael Aquino, right? I mean, Psywar expert guy, Temple of Set. I think that David Bowie's character in The Labyrinth was modeled after Aquino because they both have those eyebrows. And we have the Goblin King, right, kidnapping the baby. His big package on display with his tight pants on the whole film. I mean, The Labyrinth is very symbolic of just the underground network and tunnel system of these traffickers, the underground world that exists out of our sight. The Moloch machine, as some refer to it. So, yeah, it's just so pervasive. I mean, looking back at Shirley Temple, I'm just astonished. I grew up watching Shirley Temple, and I never realized how sexual it is. She's sitting on grown men's laps. She's in a bikini, baby burlesque. That's what they called it, baby burlesque.
Yep, I watched some of those videos, and I was just a bit shocked to myself that she was really performing for the lust of grown men. That's really what it was about. That was her true audience, not kids.
No.
And so, Sinead, given this grim picture we just discussed of the possible future, you've had a son, and I mean, you've brought a baby into the world, and I assume you're going to exercise the utmost protection and all that with your son. And you said your son healed your whole family, which I think is wondrous and great to know. But what are you going to do if your son is walking into a world like the one we're describing?
I'm actually really glad you asked me this question, because I've been having a big internal dilemma with this recently, and I've been crying to my husband a lot about this. You know, biologically right now, I want to have another child. That's what my body's telling me. That's what my soul is telling me. But then I look at the world that we're living in. I look at what my son is up against and what future children would be up against. And I just don't feel right bringing another child into this world at this time until I actually see that some justice is being done. And I actually have a lot of guilt, and I've been, dealing with this recently, trying to do something about it because it's an awful feeling. But I didn't know just how bad things were when I had my son, and he was planned and he was welcomed and it was great. I do not regret having my son. He's the best thing that ever happened to me. He is what gave me that kick in the butt to really start doing everything I could to make this world a better place. But I do battle with a lot of guilt, just feeling like I brought him into a prison, and um, you know, uh, I feel bad about it. So I'm really conflicted. And my husband, he believes that we're going to win, and this can't go on forever, but I'm more of the devil's advocate, like, but we can't take that chance. And it's an awful place to be, because I so badly just want to be able to be a mother and just a very simple life, have a garden, have a family, have a couple dogs and cats, and just that's it. But it's not able to happen at this time. I mean, obviously I could have another child, but I don't want that guilt. And I know a lot of people are going through that as well. And I'm not trying to discourage people from having children, but I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that justice is done and that my son has a future. And I won't stop until, he has that. So I wish I had like a clear cut answer, but I go back and forth every day, feeling like, all right, we're going to win. It's just around the corner. Like, why am I losing hope, or why am I questioning this? And then there's days where I say, I can't have another child. Like, I would feel so bad. And what if I get thrown in jail or something? And, all these things go through my mind. So all I know is that every day that I'm alive here still, I will do everything that I can to ensure that justice is done and that my son has a future,
No, that's a
a
great
good future.
answer. And I understand that you're conflicted, but maybe you could look at it like this, that you prevailed and survived a terrible ordeal that most others wouldn't. Even though it wasn't the worst ordeal ever in history, it was a taste
Right.
of that ugly chasm, and that you have created in your son a continuation of you. And so, if you're working this hard and constantly to improve where we are, and many thanks to you for that, then your son may very well also continue that. And so, he is the arrow getting another extension, as it moves forward in this
Right.
philosophy.
Yeah, I really like that way of looking at it. And that's what my husband tells me too, is that Sinead, he's going to look at us as heroes. And I agree with him. I really do. And I think that my son has had such a great start in life. I mean, just looking back at how my husband and I were brought into the world, we both had traumatic births. We were both vaccinated. We were both lied to. We were both traumatized. I had a home birth. I caught my son myself. I breastfed him. He's never had a vaccine. He's not going to be brainwashed by school. He's going to be homeschooled. We're teaching him the truth about the world, to question things. We're teaching him how to grow food. He already gardens. He's 2.5 years old and he knows how to grow food. I mean, it's awesome. So I'm seeing just how much more powerful he can be than my husband and I combined. And that is really cool. So, I feel on one hand, it's my duty to have more awesome children that can save the world. But then on the other hand, I don't want them to be cannon fodder, and I don't want to have the whole weight of the world on their shoulders either. So it's an internal struggle, but I really like the way that you framed it. And yeah, that makes me feel better. So thank you.
Well, I just tried. And so I'll just amend and say an extension of you and your husband. So that's a
Right,
great
right, right.
thing there. But I know what you mean. If he had a sibling or two, he might have more friends.
That's one of the
More.
major reasons I want to have another one right now, because he doesn't have a lot of friends. Luckily, our family is allowing the two cousins to get together, and they're the same age. So that's beautiful, but they're very far away. And I can't really allow him to be friends with some of these people because they are very negative influence, and I don't want that to rub off on him. So siblings, would be great for him. Yeah. definitely.
Well, Sinead, is there anything else you'd like to add or venture into in our discussion?
I think we've really covered a lot today, and I just want to thank you personally for allowing me to tell my story. A lot of people use it as fodder against me to say that I was put in a mental institution, that I'm mentally unstable, that I'm crazy, that I'm bipolar. Um, that's always good. They're always going to find a chink in your armor, but I think that anybody who looks at my work and my consistency in my message will know that I'm not mentally ill, that I was simply too bright and too questioning for society. Therefore, my light had to be turned out. And they almost did it, but they didn't win. And I'm back stronger than ever with a clearer mind now that I'm off all those chemicals. I've been off those pills for years. So that really helped as well to clear up the fog. And I feel such an inspiration to fight no matter what. And that's it. I really appreciate it, Sophia. Thank you very much. And thank you for all the work that you do. I love your podcast and everything you've been doing.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm glad that we have found each other and there are others like us, and you are a bright light, and your son will hopefully also be a bright light. And we need bright lights because we're in darkness, and maybe that's the way this world was always designed, to be a dark place where people came just so they could turn their light on. But it's important to turn that light on, and I wish more people would do it on their own, and we wouldn't have to badger them to do it as we always are,
Yes. Yep. No, I know that feeling. Yeah, but it only takes a very small, dedicated minority of people to get things done. That's what I always have to remind myself of. So, with us few people dedicated to telling the truth no matter what, we can do a lot. So that's promising.
Well, Sinead, thank you for coming on, and do continue to nurture yourself and take care of yourself, because you've done a great job surviving and thriving. This is the thing. I always tell people it's not hard to survive. You can survive in a state of brainwashing, or, you can be skeletal. You can be wriggling on the ground with no muscle mass at all and near death, and that's still survival. But to thrive is an entirely different situation, and you've done it. And so my hat goes off to you, and a big hug to you, and I will have you back.
Absolutely. Or I'll have you on my podcast, because I'm going to get back to podcasting probably next month. So it would be great to chat again, Sophia.
Well, thank you, and all the best, and until we meet again.
Thank you. Take care.
Hey everyone, this is Sophia. I want to tell you about iodine, which I've been selling on the website avatarproducts.com. That's my online store. Iodine is a mineral that the body needs pretty much more than any other mineral. Iodine goes to every single cell in your body. It's crucial for reproductive system organs. It's crucial for the thyroid. The thyroid makes 4 hormones. It can't even make them without iodine. And what has happened, we've started to make thyroid hormone out of bromine, fluorine, and chlorine because they resemble iodine so closely as molecules. So we're getting brominated thyroid hormone, chlorinated thyroid hormone, fluoridated thyroid hormone. And those hormones regulate so many different systems in the body. No wonder we're falling behind in our cellular detoxing and housekeeping. So if you visit avatarproducts.com, you're going to see 3 different kinds of iodine. You can get a trial size for only a few dollars, 1/4 ounce. And that's a good place to start. So help yourself and feel better. Reminding you, visit avatarproducts.com, where you'll find a number of things that I have discovered, or I've even designed in some cases, that have solved problems for me. Visit avatarproducts.com.